Okay, so today we're going to continue working on our Candyland landscape, and we are going to learn about space so that I can use a variety of sizes of objects for the foreground, middle ground, background to help show perspective. And then obviously we're going to be adding the color today as well. So are my two examples that are really nice. These are both done completely with markers, but I'm going to give you some options on other mediums to use, okay? So to show the foreground, middle ground, and background, I'm going to look at my paper and see if there's anything I need to add. So in the foreground, that is the front. That is the areas that are going to be the largest. It's closest to us. So what I did to show that was I made sure my little pathway got larger the closer it got to me. My middle ground right here is right in the middle. So it's going to be medium-sized pieces and the trees. So I've got my biggest tree and the medium trees, and then the smallest trees are in the background. So I've got the hills and the sky in the background, and my castle or my Candyland house is kind of in the background, but it's also in the middle ground too. So it's somewhere in between those two areas. So I'm going to show you all the options now. Now, one thing I do want to say before I get started, I did watercolor, I use marker, and I use crayon. I will say when I use the watercolor, I usually paint an area, let it dry before I get and use anything right next to it because it will bleed. So I kind of skipped around, and so I'm going to do the watercolor first right here on this grassy area. So with that, I have my watercolor paints over here, and then my brush. So obviously my grass is green, but I also use some other colors to make it look interesting. So I'm going to go to the green as my base, and I'm going to paint in with the green. So look what happened there. I got a little bit of the brown on it, so I'm going to have to be really careful. If I painted something last time or used marker, I'm going to have to be really careful when I go right beside it. So I'm going to use a little bit of blue right here, closest to my little house, just to give it kind of a shadow. Then I can go back into my green again, and the more water, the lighter my color would be. And I'm doing pure green right here, but maybe I want to go into the yellow. So I clean up my brush, go to my yellow, and add some yellow to my green. So I can do a light green. So on mine, I just happen to choose green, and I used a little bit of blue as a shadow and yellow as my highlights, so it's not all the same shade of green. I could also have chosen to use brown. Brown is great because it creates almost like a kind of like a army green color, which is nice too. So I'm going to go back into my yellow. I always make sure I go into my water before I switch to any other color. Then I'm going to go around here, and I could have chosen other brushes, different sizes, but this is a pretty large area, so that's why I went to my large brush. I can go in here, add a little more dark green, and let that kind of settle and dry, okay? Then what I'm going to show you as an option for I'm going to have vanilla ice cream on my cones. So what I can do for that, I'm going to turn my paper around so you can see it. I probably should have chosen a larger brush, but I'm going to use this big one. I think I'll make it work here. But I want water on my brush, and then I'm going to use black. And I'm barely putting any black on my brush. And if you kind of go around the edges with this, it's going to give it like kind of a gray look. So once again, once you add water to a paint, it's very, very bold and vivid. So this doesn't bother me, but if you don't want that to be that dark, you can go to plain old water and then put water right on top of it, and it will lighten it right away just by adding water. Just more water, so I have a smoother edge. If that is still too dark for you, you can do the option of the water, squeeze it out, and it's like a mop, and kind of mop up the excess water, and it will lighten it that way as well, okay? And the other option is to use a paper towel and blot it. You just literally take the towel, put it on top, and lift it back up. Do not rub or wipe, or you're gonna have it bleed, okay? So I showed you some areas. I chose to use just regular paint, watercolor. I'm going to show you another option you can use is marker. And with the marker, I can use it to completely color in an area, or like I'm doing now, I'm going to trace or outline some of my pencil lines or my marker lines, and then I can use crayon to fill in the rest. So I wanted a lighter cone, so I did the outline with my marker, then I found a crayon, and then you can color straight on top of the marker, okay? And then I think this gives it a really nice effect. So I use the 3 mediums in mine. I use watercolor, I use marker, and I use crayon. You may choose to do this as all marker, a combination of marker and crayon, or all 3 like I've done. The samples that they gave, it was just marker. So you can do the whole thing with marker, and then leave anything that's supposed to be white, just leave it the white of the paper. That is your option, okay? But I kind of like using these different colors, but just remember, hop around, and if it's wet, like right in here, that is still shiny and wet. I am not even going to attempt to color in my gumdrops until that's dry. So if you do use water, just beware, just like I did here. I touched my water to where the marker was and it bled a little bit. That can happen. And 2, if I painted this and then I color right on top of this, it could do the same thing and bleed, okay? So kind of hop around your picture as you're working.